Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new episode of the Michelle.languages podcast. So today's main topic is my linguistic background. I would like to give you further details about my language learning journey since day one till up to now. So I started learning languages at school in first grade, so I was 6 years old, and in Italy we call this elementary school, so during the first year of scuola elementare. I started learning both Italian, of course, because we need to learn our own mother language, and it was compulsory to study another language, and it was English. I was really happy, to be honest, because since day one I actually noticed that I was really passionate towards new languages, learning new words, actually trying to get new words out of my mouth in a new way, with a new sound. So since first grade I actually developed a love for language learning, and my teacher always told to my parents that I was very passionate, and he suggested to actually invest on this hobby, on this love for language learning. So basically I studied English for all 5 years of elementary school, but it was, basic stuff like how are you, my name is, and stuff like that. But I already developed a kind of Americanish accent. It was still mixed a little bit with Italian, but I was a child, but I was deeply passionate, really deeply passionate. And all the teachers were really surprised by the results that I could achieve in 5 years of elementary school. But let's now talk about middle school. I don't know the grades because Italian system is kind of different from the rest of the world. It resembles a little bit the German one, but it's still kind of unique. So I will just use the terms that I'm used to. So hope you won't mind. But I will introduce you to the Italian educational system a little bit. So I will give you a small background about it. During the first year, during the 3 years of middle school, we actually are introduced to a third language. Italian, so is the first one, and we mainly study grammar, which is a big, huge point. But probably I will explain this in another episode, because I think that studying the grammar and a little bit of the linguistics, so how our own language works, actually helps us to learn and to develop an effective strategy to learn another new language. English, as always, compulsory, 3 years, and then we were introduced to a new language, as I told you. In my school, there was just French. So I did 3 years of French and stopped. I never learned French during both university and high school because, to be honest, I really had a good relationship with French for the first 2 years, in which I had an amazing teacher. She was really strict, but I think she gave me a very good method to study the French language. In fact, I can speak a little bit. I still remember how to form sentences, basic stuff like A1, A2 level. But during the third year, we had to change the teacher. But she was so boring, to be honest. I did little progress, and I started getting mad at the French language and at this teacher. So I started to hate French, unfortunately, because I spoke French like B1-ish, more or less. So it was really a shame, to be honest, to abandon the language. But I'm planning to get it back into French or later this year or at the beginning of next year, once I'm done with Spanish, because I would like to get the conversational level pretty well. Like, I already have a good conversational level, but I would like to work on other things. But Okay, so that's with French. Let's talk about the summer between, I think it was summer 2012. Yeah, I finished middle school. I was 13 years old, I think. I'm not really that sure. Well, I was already 14 years old because I was born in 98, so forgive my maths. That's why I studied languages. I never got really that much into maths, but let's not talk about this. So, summer 2012, I finished middle school. I graduated from middle school, and I was so much into Japanese, into anime. It was the year in which I discovered anime. My best friend introduced me to Death Note, and I was already very interested in Japanese culture and Japanese history since I was very little. I don't know why, but I was a weird kid. I know. But so, after watching Death Note, my love for Japanese, and especially the sound of the Japanese language, like skyrocketed. So I started to study Japanese on and off with the resources that I could find. You know, guys, back in the days in Italy, there was nothing, literally nothing about the Japanese language, or in general about non-European languages. So I found back in the days a free website that used to give free lessons that was called Sakura Magazine. Gosh, I remember I used to look up their lessons, write down notes. So I actually studied on and off Japanese for the whole period of high school. So more or less, with the things that I studied from the resource that I could find at the time, I actually managed to complete the first part of the first year at university. Like 2 adjectives, more or less. It was really fun to see that. I noticed that I could do stuff. I could follow the lesson without any problems because I already studied all the kind of stuff on my own. It was really amazing. It was an amazing feeling, to be honest. And I would like to share with you an anecdote about me and the Japanese language. So I already told that there was nothing at the time. There was just a very small library. Well, actually, it's a huge library. Sorry, not library, it's a bookstore. I'm sorry. English language sometimes is so weird. There was this bookstore in the center of my hometown that used to have some books for the Japanese language. They actually were the first Japanese books that came out, and they were all in Italian. And I remember that I was like in, I don't know if it was the second or the third year of high school, and I got my report back, the final report for the year, and I got amazing grades. So I asked my grandma to come with me, and she bought me as a present for my good grades my first Japanese grammar book. I still have it here because it's a good one for Italian native speakers. But oh my gosh, I remember I used to spend hours in the bookshop with my friends looking at all those Japanese books that started to... The collection of Japanese books in that bookshop used to grow every time I went there, and it was so amazing that I was like, I can't wait to be able to buy those books. I was so in love, to be honest. But okay, that was the first part with Japanese. Then I spent 5 years in high school studying Spanish, so I switched Spanish with French, basically. And they were 5 years of constant growth till I got the B2 certificate, I think, during the 4th year. Oh, a little disclaimer, we have 5 years of high school in Italy. Just to give you a little bit of background. And I was so happy. I abandoned Spanish for a couple of years, but since more or less the end of 2020, I started to get back into Spanish again. Now I need to review some stuff, but to be honest, I speak Spanish without much problems. If I don't know a word, or I switch back into English, or I try to explain myself, so I can actually survive with my Spanish. So that's fine. And nowadays I'm working on it through the Polyglot Union, a community project created by Mari Polyglot, and Mari is a friend of mine, and we have a very nice group and we meet up every Thursday to have a conversational class. Well, it's actually a group of friends that converse in Spanish basically, and it's really, really funny. Then German, dun 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 dun. Okay, so I did a very special high school in which I was able to add a third foreign language from the third year, and I chose German. I have a very bittersweet relationship with German because I'm so in love with German. I really like that it's a logical language, so it's really logic sometimes. I really like the pronunciation. I used to listen a lot to Tokyo Hotel back in the day, so don't judge me. But to be honest, I have lots of beef with this language. Because basically, first year in which I started learning German, well, the teacher was going to retire, so she was really no interested in learning and teaching us German. So I spent a year repeating the names of the colors, and I'm not joking. I think that rot is the word that I know better in German. Second year, the other teacher refused the fact that we didn't know anything, so he started teaching us A2 stuff, but we didn't even complete the A1 level, so it was useless. Third year, finally we found a teacher that was so in love with teaching us German, but my classmates basically didn't want to have German classes. So during the 3 hours that we had per week for German, we used to watch movies in German and stuff like that. But so what happened? I was so in love and so mad. Current affairs, basically. It was very weird, but don't mind, guys. Italian school system doesn't really make sense. So I used to skip the class. Obviously, it was my teacher, my religious studies teacher, agreed with that. So I could spend an hour every week in order to have one-on-one lessons with my German teacher. And so doing this for more or less 5 months, I actually got to the B1. And I got the B1 Goethe certificate, or I think, well, at least I got the B1 certificate. But to be honest, I don't know how I passed it. To be honest, I don't know. Then we got to university. University, at least the undergrad, was very, very weird because first of all the 3 years of the undergrad was really, really interesting. So I switched back. Japanese. Okay, I started learning Japanese in a very serious way at university, and sometimes the thing that I experienced is that I felt lost in some kind of way, but it was my fault. Why? Because I didn't know how to organize. I didn't come up with an effective study plan since day one, so sometimes I see that I lack in some things because I didn't know how to organize. Actually, all the 3 years were a huge mess because I had to do an internship, but I did it, I think, at the wrong time, so everything was so messed up, to be honest. So my grades were not that high, but my teacher recognized that I could speak Japanese, but the exams were too difficult in general. Everyone was so mad with our teachers, with our professors, because they used to give us exams that were like, what are you trying to say? They were so difficult for the things that we studied in class. But at least now I'm organized, I have my methods, I mix and match different resources, and I think that now that I'm an intermediate learner, I found the method for me, or at least the methods that work for me. So, chapeau to me. Then, Korean. Oh gosh, I had huge misadventures with Korean. I fell in love with the Korean language like when I started university, basically. I noticed that there were some classes during the second semester of the Korean language. They were like an introductory course, but I never had the chance to attend that course, and I think I won't be able to attend it right now, even though that I'm in a master's degree, because all Korean classes are at the same time with my Japanese one, and I cannot leave my Japanese classes behind for Korean. So okay, this is just a little bit that I have with my university, but okay, let's not mind it. So I wanted to start Korean so bad like a couple of years ago, and I bought from a colleague of mine here at university a book that it was in Italian. I was kind of skeptical, to be honest, because I didn't read very good reviews about that book, but you know, it was like 15 euros, so I thought, okay, let's give it a chance. But oh gosh, it was terrible. So after a couple of chapters, I abandoned it. I resold it. Oh gosh, sometimes my English is not like So I sold it to another friend of mine, but I then gave up with Korean for some months. Then I think it was early 2020, yeah, more or less. I thought that maybe I could give a try to the Bible, to the main resource, to the like, I don't know how to describe it, but basically, Talk to Me in Korean is the go-to thing. It's the go-to method, the go-to website, go-to YouTube channel, I don't know, everything, go-to books to start learning Korean. And I also used Billy Go in order to integrate stuff, in order to, get multiple resources, multiple inputs. That sounds better. But I noticed that I was using Learn Another one, which basically was language lettering, because English is not my main language, but it's like my second one. I don't speak it perfectly, but I can get by with it pretty easily. But it was not working. I don't know, the things didn't get stuck in my head, and when I used to take notes, I noticed that Korean pattern am 100% the same that I found in the Japanese language. So after months of using especially Billy Go when they talk to me in Korean, I said, okay, stop. Let's see if there are people who are learning languages through another target language, maybe one that is more advanced. And I came across with Lindy's videos. Disclaimer, who doesn't follow Lindy? I used to follow her since 2018, so not that much, but I used to watch her videos while I was commuting to university and stuff like that. But I noticed that there were some videos about learning Japanese through Korean books. And I thought, okay, if there is someone who's doing this, I think that there is a possibility that there are Japanese books that allows me to learn Korean. So I went to Amazon Japan and typed Kangokugo, which is the Japanese word for Korean language. Kangokugo. And Amazon Japan actually showed me a huge list well, not that huge to be honest, but a very interesting list of books that was called, there was this series that was called できる韓国語. I did some research through YouTube, some websites, and I fell in love with those books. I bought them. I wasn't really that sure because I couldn't see many pages of the book, so I was like blind. I instinctively bought them. So the first one and the workbook, I spent like 50 euros with shipping it. Shipping was included, and they came in a couple of days. Thanks Amazon Japan and DHL. Thank you so much. And I fell in love with it. And now it's almost 3 months that I've been learning Korean through Japanese, and I noticed how this method is super effective for me. Language lettering with Japanese actually is helping me a lot with my Korean. Maybe I'm not progressing that much, but I see daily improvement, which is amazing, to be honest. And I would like to say that small improvement is still improvement. So we don't need to rush actually language learning. It's a lifetime journey. So you don't need to stress that much about it. I really hope that you enjoyed listening to me talking about my experience, because I think that sometimes sharing experiences and sharing what worked, didn't work, can actually help us realize if we're doing good or wrong in our language learning experience. So I really hope that this episode inspired you, made you realize that even if nowadays I can speak several languages as a beginner, as an intermediate, as an advanced learner, so I can speak different languages at different levels, you notice that actually I've been through different stages, love and hate relationships, bad teachers, self-studying. So I tried more or less everything in almost 23 years of life, which is a lot though. It is a lot because I've been learning languages for the most part of my life. And to be honest, I'm never tired. I'm not tired of it, and I will never be probably, because languages are my biggest hobby, my biggest passion, and I'm really, really happy to share with you and to have shared with you my story. I hope it inspired you, it motivates you to learn new languages, or just give you the right motivation to learn right now, to have a small study session with your favorite target language. And guys, see you in the next episode. Bye bye.